Okay, I decided to record the class and post it on the Canvas page, upload it on the Canvas page for if you want for people that are not in class, maybe you're missing one or two classes and you need to keep up on the concept we have learned in that specific class. You can always go back to the video and rewatch and ask questions if you have any. So today we will be rounding up our lesson 4, and this will be our last class before this will be the last class before the first the exam 1 on Tuesday. So um very brief today. We will conclude the branch and conditional statements. Also we will review the study guide for exam 1, and I wish you success in your exam. Please let me know if you have any question. Uh, as regard to the exam, so yesterday I was it yesterday or no, it was on Tuesday. On Tuesday, I posted an announcement. I posted this announcement, and this is how the exam will be conducted. We have to use Honologue for the exam, and it's gonna come with a fee per exam. And for this course, we have two exams. So we have the first exam from lesson 2 until lesson 4, and we have the second exam from lesson 5 until lesson 7. Um, for lesson 8, that will not be part of your exam. But we will go through some concept for lesson 8. But for your first exam, it is from lesson 2 to lesson 4. And for each exam, you have to pay some amount of money. These are information. So I have a link here if you have not taken this kind of exam before. So this will provide you more information um, on how to go about it. If you're finding anything difficult or struggling with any part of the exam process, not the examination itself, so please let me know. If you cannot take the exam using analog, there's a special reason or there's a specific condition, I believe you should have reached out before now. So please let me know. Let me know. Communicate with me. Um, so you have this information, and I will post more detail by the end of this class or on Tuesday morning. On Tuesday morning, so you have more information on how the exam will be conducted. Any question on this? Thumbs up if there's no question and you understand how you have to access analog. Perfect, thank you. So before we move to the topic for today, I would also like to emphasize your lesson 4 Zyvox activities. Trust me, let's go back today. I want to show you something on the course syllabus, which is very, very important. And I want us to take note of that. Let's go. Let's look at the grading policy. Your Zybox participation activity takes 12% of your total score. Your challenge activity is taking 18%. And you have your Zylabs. Your Zylabs take 35%. So if you had 35 plus 18 plus 12, your Zybox assignment alone is taking more than 50%. I don't know. I cannot overemphasize this. It is very, very important. And when I go through your Zybox, I say people are not submitting the assignment, working with the due dates. This is very, very important because Trust me, if you can get the entire 65% from the Zybox assessments and your Canvas quiz, you can decide to take one of the exams or none of the exams, or you take two of the exams. If you're doing well with your Zybox activity, your Canvas quiz, your checking, it's 3%, but of course, your class reflection activities, they're very, very important. Seriously, for this course, the exam is very important. The exam is highly recommended. Highly recommended. However, if you are taking your Zybox activities as important and essential, and you are meeting the due date, you're submitting before the due date, trust me, with 65% of your entire grade, 65% of your entire grade, 65%. So you can, and if you've done well within the 65% and you have limited attempts, that's why you need to start early, because you have limited attempts. So if you try the first attempt, you're not perfect, you're not okay with your grade, you can always go back and and retake the maybe the part you felt you've not done well. You can retake it. Your participation activity, your challenge activity, and your Xylabs can be done multiple times. So even your Canvas quiz, your end of lesson Canvas quiz, they can be done multiple times. Please take advantage of all this flexibility. I think we're flexible enough for this course. I think so. And I'll be honest, it's really not impressive enough for me as the instructor that you're not keeping up with your Zybox assignments. They are very, very important. They take 65% of your entire grade. So please go back to your course syllabus, check this information there. So trust me, with your Zybox assignment, you're good. Combined with your end of end of lesson quizzes and your exams, trust me, you're successful in this course already. Please do let me know. Do let me know if you have any concerns or you have any difficulties. I'm here to help you. I'm here. I want you to be successful. I want you to pass this course very well. Trust me. So please, for your lesson 4, the due date for lesson 4 is this Friday, which is tomorrow. And trust me, if you have not started this, I will be honest, lesson 4, it's a lot on lesson 4. So I'm going to go through it. So you can see, lesson 4, we have so many things to cover. Can you see? So many things. And trust me, I have all this information. I can see when you started, the time you started your assessment. I can see how long you're spending on each of these activities. So you don't come back and say, hey, I will know you. It's between lesson submission for lesson 3 and lesson 4 is about 2 weeks between it. And I'm always saying you can always read ahead of the classes. You can always read ahead of the classes. Please, this is the half. I think we are in the half of the semester. And going forward with the second part of this course, I would love to see much improvement, in all those things. It is very, very important. Trust me, if you're good with your Zybox activities alone, which is 65% of your total grades. Any question on this? any concerns whatsoever on how to use, probably you're struggling with how to use Zybox. That's why I have it in the check-ins. Almost every 2 weeks, you have to check in activities where you can always reach out, communicate. Hey, I'm struggling with how to use the Zybox. Can you help me? Can you put me through? I'm more than happy to support you on that. Do you have any concerns at all on how to use Zybox? Any concerns on how to use Zybox? Because I feel that could be one of the reasons um, the assignments are not being submitted as at when due, please. Okay, that being said, so you have until tomorrow, 11:59. Please submit your lesson 4 Zybox assignments. And on Monday, next week, Monday, yes, which will be, I think, the second. Monday will be where? Yeah, the 2nd of March. You also have your check-in 5. Your check-in 5 is to ensure your grades are accurate. Is Zybox communicating well with Canvas as regards to your grades? Are your grades being synchronized very well? Do you have any issues with how to use Zybox? These are questions, and I have few other questions which are like, how is this course so far? Do you have any difficulties with any of the concepts that have been discussed in the class so far? So please don't forget, submit your check-in 5. They are part of your grades. It takes 3% of your total grade. So it is very, very important. Any question? Thumbs up if there's no question, and we can start today's activity. Perfect, thank you. So, that being said, what are we going to discuss today? Okay, I have it here. So, last class on Tuesday, okay, I would like to go through something. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, perfect. So, last class on Tuesday, we discussed the 2 types of methods that we have. And we said we have the static method and we have the instant method. What is it about the static method? The static method, you can always call them, you can execute them, you can use them, you can invoke those methods without creating an object. Example of that, math class. You don't have to declare or create an object for a math class. All you have to do is to communicate the method. You're calling the method using the class. You're not calling the method using an object. You're calling the method using the class where the method is. So you're saying math dot square root. Maybe that's what you want to calculate. Math dot maximum or math dot minimum, math dot max, math dot min, that's when you're calculating the minimum. So you don't have to create a specific object to hold that, because the class communicates to the method directly. Any question on that? That's the simplest form of what a static method is. You do not require an object to be created to use static method. However, when we are talking about instance method, you need to create an object. There is need for an object to hold the value. And when you're using the object communicates to the method. So you do not have to include the class to reach to the method. You only need to use the objects to communicate with the method. And we talked about the scanner class, and we have been using this class. We have been using this class since lesson 2. You have to import that specific class. You have to create an object. You have to initialize the object you have created. And when you want to use the specific method, how do you use it? You use the method, you communicate the method, you call the method using the object you have created. What is an object? An object is always an instance of a class. An instance of a class. So an object, in that sense, in instance method, is representing the class. However, in static method, because the way the compiler understands static method, you don't need to create an object. It directly communicates to the class. But in instance, you have to create what? An object. Any confusion on these two types of methods? Going forward, we will be using them. Any confusion, any question? Thumbs up if you understand. You can differentiate. That will be coming out in your exam. So if you can differentiate between static and instant method, perfect. And we talked about the character class. What is it about a character class? We said the character is just a single, we're talking about a single character. When we're talking about multiple character that has a string, we'll be talking about that today. But a character is just a single, a single character, a single value. So it could be numeric and any keyboard. Anything on our keyboard could be a character. Space, backslash, numeric number, uppercase, letter A to Z, lowercase, letter A to Z. That's a character, but it has to just be one, a single value, a single, could be numbers, it could be letters, either capital letter, uppercase, or lowercase letter. So I want us to go through this example with me. Let's trace this example. Let's trace it before we run the code and see. And this is testing what? How we use the character class. Don't forget the character class, most of the methods within this class are static method. They are static method. So we don't have to create an object to use them. And we will see that here. So, of course, this is the class. Don't forget the naming convention for our class and our file has to be the same, and we have to use the upper camel case when naming the class, the file. And here, our main method, and we were talking about declaring. Here we are declaring and initializing a variable. What variable are we declaring? Meet char. That's the name of the variable here. What is this char telling the compiler? It's telling the compiler how this variable will be stored in memory. So this variable will be stored as what? A character data type. A character data type. So this is saying this specific variable called middle char, which is a character data type, is equal initializing, Don't forget when we are talking about the assignment operator here. Equals to 1. I said character could be any value. It just has to be a single value. It could be numeric, it could be digit, it could be letter. And the second variable we have declared here is account char. And here is what is also a character data type. And it is holding what value? What is the value we've initialized here? B. Don't forget, data type character is telling the compiler, how do you save? How am I going to save this in memory? Any question on declaration and initialization of a variable? Thumbs up if you understand that, because I can't see anybody on camera. So I need some kind of reaction to know you're following. Thank you. And what happens next? Here we want to check. We are using a conditional statement. And we want to check if this character is a letter. So we are saying is an if-else statement. An if-else. Don't forget, in if-else statement, which is a by, it's talking about two conditions. It's two conditions. It's not a standalone. We are giving two conditions. That it's not just an if statement. It's an if else. So we have two conditions. And we are talking about the if condition, that's the if clause, and we are talking about the else clause. So what is our Boolean expression here? What are we checking here? Don't forget, I said this last week. Anytime we are using is a letter, is a digit, when anytime we are using is it a lowercase, is it a uppercase, we are returning a true value. So our solution should be in what? In Boolean, is that true or false? And here we said if. And what is the condition here? If this character is a letter, what character? This is the class. Character is the class. It's the class. And is letter, that's the method. Don't forget, that's the method. We discussed this. Let me go through. You can always check the documentation, and that's Java character. So when we go here, and let's see the method, because I want you to understand. You can see they are all majorly static. And we want to check is. We're saying is a letter, right? So it should be down. So you can see is a static Boolean because is will always come with either true or false. That's what we're saying. Is it this or not? True or false? And this is the method. It's a static method. So we don't have to create an object. All we have to do is to do what? All we have to do is to call the class, and we use the dots. Don't forget, we call the class because we can reach this method using the class. And we call the class character with a dot method. So we're using the class dot method. And what is the method we are using here? The method we are using here is what? A letter. Is this character a letter? Is a letter. This is the method. And we have the syntax. That is why Java documentation is very, very important. And you must learn, you must know how to use them. You can't know all this offhand. You can't know everything in your head. So you have this documentation. Oh, I need to use this specific method. How will I use it? Then you go to your documentation. That's why we have this documentation here. And he said, okay, here's a letter. This is how it's been written. Perfect. So you take this, and within this parenthesis, you have to pass what? Pass the condition you want it to check. And so when we go back, within this method, we have to call. What are we checking? We are checking if this particular variable, that's the parameter here, is a letter. And we are telling the system, that's the next statement here, using the print statement to say, if this character is a letter, then you print it. Print the variable plus. Why are we using plus? We will talk about that also. I think we've discussed that in lesson 2 and lesson 3, and we will talk about concatenation again today. And we are concatenating, we are joining, we are combining two or more values together, two or more variables together. So we're saying, then print the statement. Else, if this value is not a letter, it's, we just said it's a Boolean, it brings true or false. So we need the else. We need the first clause. That's the else clause. That else, if this is not a letter, then print is not a letter. And this is one, what? This is one block of code. And also, we want to check. The next one is that we want to check, is the account child variable, is it in lowercase or uppercase? Is it in lowercase? So if it's not in lowercase, then false. It is not in lowercase. It is in uppercase. So how do we do this? How do we do this? And here we said, if, we are calling the character class. That's the class. Because it's an instant method, we don't need to create an object for it. We're saying is lowercase, and we have to pass, we have to pass the parameters we want the condition to check. So that's the method. And we're telling the system that if this is a lowercase, then you print. Then print this account is now. What do we want to do here? What are we doing in the second line? We want to convert it to an uppercase. So we're saying, you can say it's different from the first example. We're saying if this is a lowercase, then change, convert. We're saying to change this to an uppercase. If this condition is met, if this value is a lowercase, then change it to an uppercase. Else. That is, if it is not in lowercase, if it is in uppercase, then change it to a lowercase. Any question? So let's run it and see what we have. It's taking some time. No, my computer is slow. Okay, so what do we have? 1 is not a letter because 1 is literally not a letter. It's a digit. And we're saying B, because B is in, because B is in lowercase. What happened? The if clause is executed. And what did we tell the if clause to do? We said check if it's a lowercase. Then if it is a lowercase, then do what? Then change it to an uppercase. And that's why we have the accounts is now B in uppercase. Any question on this? Thumbs up if there's no question. We have a very small class today. Thank you very much. So that's how the character class work. The character class is mostly, the method within this class are mostly static. So we do not need to create an object. All we have to do is to call the class to access the method. And how do we call the class? What is the syntax? Character dot whatever method we want to use, or whatever method we're using, to uppercase, and you pass the parameters, and that's it. So that being said, thank you. So let's move to the string data type. The string class, not a data type, string class. It's a data type as well. So we'll discuss that. Okay. When we talk about the string class, what are we saying? How does Java handle text that are using the string class? I explained a few minutes ago that in Java, a single character is stored as a what? As a character data type. But when we have to store a sequence, more than 2 characters, then, we have to store that character as a string. So it always representing, multiple character, a string of character. That's multiple. You have more than one. You have more than one character. And that's why we have a string. So for example, you can see here string. And this is what? Message. And message here, we will discuss it. What does this message mean here? Because here it is not a variable. It is not a variable. It is an object here in the string data type. The message is an object. And we are initializing this message to what? Welcome to Java. You can see it's not just, you're not just capital W or lowercase w. It's, a sequence of character, multiple character coming together. Welcome to Java. And don't forget, I said if we are initializing a character, we use a single quote, but when it comes to string, we use double quote. Very important, very important. You will be checked on, on this basic concepts. So you have to understand it, you have to know it. And sorry, when we are talking about string, why did I say, can anybody answer why I said this is not a variable declaration here? This is more of an object. You're declaring, an object here. You're creating an object here. Can anybody explain why this message, in other data type, int, we said int nums apple. Nums apple is a variable. But in the string data type, string message, this is an object. Why? Why do you think? So can anybody describe that to the class? Any opinion? Okay, so you follow this. Now, you know why? Because the string is not a primitive data type. It is not. It is a class. And every string we create is an object. Unlike when we're talking about integer. Here, message does not store this value itself. It is storing the reference, the address. This value is being stored in the address because this is an object. So conceptually, you know what this message is doing? This message here is referencing to how the string should be saved or stored in memory. It is not a primitive data type. It is actually a predefined class in Java library, It's just like the way we have the scanner class. It is not. It is known as reference type. It is not a primitive data type. And that's why message here is not a variable, but an object. There are other ways to declare an object in string. We will look at that in a few minutes. Any question on this? Primitive data type stores the actual value directly. It stores the actual value directly. However, in a reference type like this, it only, it's not storing it directly. It's only holding, referencing this value to the storage message. Any question? Thumbs up if there's no question and we are good on this. Thank you. Thank you. Because it's very, very important we get this concept. Okay, so how can we, I told you there are different ways we can declare and initialize string variables. How can we do that? So we're saying here you can, have an empty string. You can initialize putting, a long value. And also we can use the same object from another variable because it's a reference point. It's not going to change the value. It's a reference point. So we can use what we can use the same object from another variable. Maybe we've been working and we have declared, so we can always reuse that same object from another variable. So we've been talking about how to join, concatenating. And this is something we've been talking about from I think from lesson 2, we have been discussing the various way we can join words or variables or values together. And how do we do that in string? We can join two or more, we can join two or more strings with variable using what? This sign, the operator, addition operator sign. And this is what we have been doing from, I think, from lesson 2. So we're saying we've declared this Bob and another word, another string variable here as hi. So we want to join these two together. How do we do that? How do we do that? We just use the plus sign to join, and it display the value of both variables together. We can also join string with a number. We can also do that. So how do we do that? We are declaring our number. And we are using what? We are also using the operator sign with the variable that we've declared. So we've been using this method. However, we can always join two strings together, or we can always join string and other variables together using the what? The operator sign. Any question on that? Thumbs up. We've been talking about concatenation, and it's very, very important. Thumbs up if you understand this. Thank you. So, what does it mean when we say appending? What does that mean? From the word appending to a string. How to append one string to the other. You're adding more to an existing string with the same. Don't forget here, you're not joining two different variables here. We are adding more to an existing string, to the same variable, but we are adding more. And how are we doing that? We've declared this as Bob, and we are saying now we are changing the reference point in memory, that name now equal name, which is here. The first reference point we have here is now equals to name here plus. Why do we have an empty here? Why do you think we have empty space here? White space here, it's an empty string. Because we want to have a space between these two words. And we've been doing that, we have space. So when the print statement is printing, there will be this clarity to read. And now we're changing the reference point again to say this name here plus Smith. And we have the full name as Bob Smith. And this is why we need the space, because we need the space between Bob and Smith. Appending is so easy. The simple meaning of appending is what? We are adding, we're adding more text to the same string. It's to the same. It's different from when we are concatenating. We're adding two things together. Here we are adding more text, more information to the same string. And this is another way we can do that. We can also use the plus. the plus operator here, and we say Bob, and we say name, we're changing the reference point here, plus equals to this. Don't forget, we talked about this operators. Don't forget, we talked about these operators in our lesson 3. What happened? Pre, post, pre-increment, post-increment. And we discussed about the differences. They are very, very important. Um, we understand this concept going forward, especially for the exam one. So we've been talking, how do we, so let's look at the documentation for the strength class, because I want us to know the kind of, so this is the documentation for the strength class. And you can see it belongs to the Java Lang class. It belongs to the Java Lang class. And why don't we have to invoke? We don't have to import, we don't have to import this class, because most of the the advancement in our compiler, these are classes. These are classes that we commonly use. So most of the compilers advancements automatically have this class inbuilt in most of this compiler. So we don't have to import it from the library. We don't have to. And when we go to the method, let's see the different methods we have. You can see the different methods we have are what? They are instance method. Commonly instance, we only have few. I think we only have 2 here, which is a static method. Don't forget, I told you last class that how do we differentiate an instance from a static method? In instant method, you will not see the word static, the keyword static, when you're reading the documentation. But in static method, you will always see static, the keyword static, when you're reading the documentation. That's how you can differentiate them. Oh, this is an instant method. This is a static method. In static method, there will be the keyword static when you're reading the documentation. Any question on that? Thumbs up if there's no question. You can differentiate between the static and the instant. And because this is mostly instant method, and we have said it, while I was explaining the beginning of the class, that in instant method, we need an object. We must declare an object because we need an object to use what? To call, to invoke a specific method in the string class. So the string method cannot be called, it cannot be used without a specific string instance. And what do we say instance? Instance is always what? Our objects. Our object. So you cannot use string methods without an object, because they are what? They are static. They are mostly static method. They are mostly instant method. I'm sorry. They are mostly instant method. So sorry. However, in static method, you do not have to create an object. So we're saying string here. For instance, we're saying string here, name. Told you. The name here is the object we have created. Is the object we have created for string. And we're saying name equals, this is what we are what? We're creating the values we're creating for name. Mary Jones. However, we want to use a method. We want to call a method in the string class. Don't forget, we have to use the object name. The object we have created is just like the scanner class. It's just like the scanner class. We have to use the object we have created. This is the opposite of the static, because in static we have to use the class name, but in instance we use the objects that we have created. Dots to uppercase, because we're saying convert this to uppercase, convert this values to uppercase, and we have to pass the parameters, that we want it to convert. And you see the output are in uppercase. However, in static method, all we have to do is to call the class. The name of the class is character. We are not calling string here. We are not calling the class in the string. We are doing what? We are calling the objects. Objects. We are communicating. We are reaching out to the method through the object in instance method. However, in static method, we are reaching out to the method through the class itself. Any question? Any question? Guys, thumbs up if there's no question. It's very, very important we understand this basic concept. So, what does the syntax look like? We said the reference, that's the object we have created, the reference variable, the object here. Plus dots, don't forget, in your code, you will see some code we will intentionally, you will not have this dot. And we will be asking, what will be the output? Of course, what should be the output? We want to see your debugging. How well can you trace this code? Do you understand this basic, simple concept? Exactly. It's an error. So you don't even have to check all the options. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't have to check all the options. You just pick the error. Oh, it will be an error. So you click on, because you have multiple choice questions. True or false questions. We are not asking you to write codes, line of codes, but we want you to put yourself in the condition, of the compiler. Think like a compiler. So of course, if this dot is missing, you don't even have to read the other option. You go, oh, this is an error. This is a systematic error. Of course, the compiler will not execute it. Any question? Okay. So let's say these are the different methods. These are the different methods we have in the string class. The simple string method. These are the most simple, we're saying length. This will return the number, we want to check. What does the length does? It gets the length of the entire string. It gets us the length of the entire, it returns the length, the number of the characters in the string. When we said char at a specific index, these are the specific index. Don't forget, it is very, very important we understand the index in computer start from 0. So it's not starting from 1. It's starting from 0. Please take note of that. So your first index is the first letter. Just like this example here, the first letter is index 0 is small letter M. We'll check that in details. So index 0, it runs from index 0, 1, 2, 3, depending on the number of words or the number of letters or the number of digits that we have in the string variable. So also we discuss about the concat. This is a specific method in the string class. And this is what? This is to add, concatenating. Instead of using, we said in our lesson 3, we said there are two ways we can concatenate. We can either use the operator sign plus, that's the addition sign, or we use the what? We use the value, the method called concat. However, the concat method only works for string when you're combining, when you're joining two strings together. That's the condition it only works when you're adding two strings together. When you're changing from uppercase, to uppercase, we want to change to uppercase. Here we want to change to lowercase. And the trim, what does the trim does? It returns new string with no space. Maybe we already put space. This, it trims, it narrows it down, it combines it with no space in between the strings. So let's say an example of when we want to get the length. So we said string, message, this is your reference point. Don't forget, the variable reference point, also serving as our object here. And we're saying, welcome to Java. Don't forget our semicolon. Very, very important. Take note of little details in your exam. Your statement terminator is very, very important. And we say system.how.printing new line. Don't forget, you have to be able to differentiate when you're printing in a new line and when you're printing on a single line. What are the different commands? And we're saying the length of this reference points is, why are we using plus? We are concatenating. We're joining these words together. Is, and what did we do here? What did we do? We use the length method. We use a specific method within the string class. However, because the string is an instance method, we have to use the reference variable, which is the object here, to access the length method. Any question? And this is example of where we want to get what? The index of a specific character. The index of a specific character. I told you, index in computer start from 0. It's not starting from 1. It starts from 0 until the end, the last letter of the string. And this is at index 0 until index 14. So the length is actually 15. However, because index starts from 0, so we're saying we want to check the first character in this message is what? We're calling the specific method using the reference variable, which is our object here. And we're telling it at index what? At the first index. The first index is always 0. Second index is 1, 2, and so forth. But the first index, the first one is always 0 when we're using this method. So how we converting? We just check this example. You're changing to lowercase, you're changing to uppercase. It's the same scenario. We have to use the reference variable, which is our object, to communicate to this method, to reach out to this method. Change this too. And the same thing I've explained how to join. We're concatenating. We're joining. We are joining two or more strings together. The first string is the first name. The first name is Mary. The second string is the last name, Smith. And what we are declaring a new variable here. And the reference point is name. So this is what we're saying. For name, we want you to concatenate the first name dot contact the last name. Don't forget, we have to call the reference points, the objects. We are not using string here. We are using the specific object we want to call it, the variable here. We have to reach these objects using we have to use this method going through these objects. Any question? Okay. So we've been talking about the scanner class, the scanner this, scanner that. Of course, the scanner object is not, we have to import it. It's a Java library, but we have to import it. It doesn't come automatically with the compiler like we have in the maths or the lang class. So for the scanner class, we have to first import it. Then once we import it, to reach the method, to use the method within the scanner class, we need to create an object. And the name of the object we have created here is inputs. And this is the method we are using within the inputs. So that is why your documentation is very, very important. You go to your documentation to see how is this being used in Java. You have those documentation. And what did we do here? Here we are saying string. We want the user to enter different words. And we're saying string equals, this is the reference point. This is the variable we're declaring, the reference point. However, we want to use the method. We cannot call string straight. We need to call the objects of the scanner class. Because the scanner class is what? It's an instant method. I said inputs, and this is the object we want to use. The object to grab value. What kind of value are we grabbing when we are using next? When we're using the next method, we are grabbing a string value. We're grabbing sequence of words, not just one character, not an integer, not a double. If it's an integer, we have to int next. Double. But here we want the user to enter 3 words. 3 words. Maybe as far as more than one character, it's a string data type. And we have to use nest method to grab string data type from the user. Any question? So we have been talking about equivalent equals to, but you remember we said in lesson 3 that we cannot use the assignment operator with string. Lesson early in the beginning of lesson 4, when we were talking about the relational operators. We're talking about the relational operators. We are talking about the double equals. We said we cannot use that. We cannot use the the double equals, the equals to equate the two strings, to check to check and compare two strings. We cannot. How do we do that for string data type or for string class? We have specific methods within the class, within the string class, that helps us to do that. And we have the equals, for instance. We have the equals. What does the equals does? What does the equals does? So what the equals does is to return true if this string, check if the string is the same. Yeah, is equals. Else, it returns false. Can you say it works in a Boolean way? So let's see examples of that. Please don't make this mistake in the exam. When you say example, the first example, string product code equals Java. If product code equals Java, that's not possible. The string doesn't work that way. However, when we're talking about other numeric data type, we can use the equals. We can use these relational operators to compare. But in string, no, we don't. So if you see this kind of code in your exam, do you have to go through all the options? Yes or no? Do you have to? Someone just, unmute yourself, use the charts. Do you have to go through each of the options? If you see this, I mean, the first line of code equals Java. And you're being asked when you write, what will be the outputs? And there were like 4 different options. You don't have to. Yes, you don't have to because it's an error. We don't use it this way. It's incorrect. How do we do it with string class? How do we do it when we're dealing with string data type? So how we do it is to say string product code equals Java. We now use if product code dot. Why do we have to call the product code here? It's an instance method. So we need the reference. We need the reference variable. Equals Java. Then print. So it's going to check, is it true? And print it. If it's true, and print it. Any question? Please don't make the mistake. Don't make the mistake to use the double equal sign. You don't have to go through the options and waste your time during the exam. So, put yourself in the position of a compiler and trace your code. Check for every little detail, every little detail. Also, if you understand how we use the equals operator to check equality, in string data type. Only have you understand this concept? Okay. Please let me know if I need to go overhead. So let's use the compare to. Let's talk about the compare to method as well. So what are we doing here? We want to compare. Is this equivalent to this? Is this equivalent to this? So this is the question we have. If S1, what is our S1? L is greater than S2, return a positive number. If S1 is less than S2, return a negative number. If S1 equals S2, return 0. This is the concept. This is the problem we want to solve. This is the problem at hand. And we will go here and say, okay, we've declared our S1 until S5, the reference variable here, and we've initialized them. So how does the compare works? The compare actually works to check the alphabetical order, So because L and S1 and S2 is the same, what happens? It returns 0 because they're equal. However, look at let's check for S1 and S3. That's H and M. So how many letters do we have between H and M? So you check for the first letter, the first letter. Say H, okay. I, J, K, L, M. Oh, so we have five. So what is this saying? Is minus five because M is actually greater than H. So since M is greater than H, it returns what? A negative number. Let's go through the last one, which is the other example here. And we said S1, we're comparing it to S5. What's S5? F. So let's check for H. Oh, E, F, G, H. Oh, there's two. So what happens? H is actually two times greater than F. So when S1 is greater than S2, what should happen? We should have a positive number. Any question on how we use the compare method? So I'm gonna just move to this concept here. This concept, which is a very important concept I'd like to go over because I'm checking the time and I can see we have less than 10 minutes and I still want to go through the exam study guide. So what happens when we want to obtain the substring? This is another method in the string class. How does this method work? How does this method work? So the first method, which is the substring beginning of the index, that's the parameters here. Don't forget, I said the index start from 0. So how does this beginning index, the substring beginning index method work? It returns the string from the beginning of the specified character until the end of the string. So perhaps I'm putting strings, the beginning of the string I want here is 11. So the index substring 11, that's what I'm putting. I'm writing message because I have to call this true word through the object, the reference variable. Dot substring 11. What does the compiler does? The compiler comes to the 11th index and print from the 11 index until the end of the index. I mean, until the end of the character, sorry. So it's from a specified index. So if it's, for instance, substring 8, it comes to, the letter 2, which is on the substring 8, until the end of the string, until index 14, and print it. However, when we're working with the other type, the other method, which is substring, and we're declaring the beginning and the end for the compiler, what happens? The compiler actually starts from the beginning, but stop at index -1 and end index -1. So if we have declared start from 0 and end at 11, it does not really end at index 11. It ends at 11 minus 1. So it ends at index 10. The end index is not always included. That's just the simple meaning. So it's always the end index -1. So it's always the index, it stops the index before the end index. And that's why we have from index 0 here, which is welcome, until the space 10. Any question on this? Any question? Thumbs up if there's no question. So it goes from 0 to 10. Yes, exactly. It goes from 0 to 11 because the index is not always included. It's end index -1. That's how that specific method works. You're absolutely correct. And a question comes up if you understand how the substring index work. Makes sense. Thank you. So I want us to go through this because I like to check this with you guys in preparation for the exam. And please spare me a few minutes. I know we are 4 minutes until the end of the class. You can leave, but if you decide to wait, um, I'll be more than happy. So your first exam runs from lesson 2 until lesson 4. What are the kind of questions? Of course, there will be some true or false question. There will be multiple choice questions, and we are not asking you to write code. You know, the questions are to really test your understanding. Do you understand how this code will work? Yes, yes, you can. You can practice. Of course, you can practice and take because they are unlimited. You can take them as many times as you want. As many times as you want. This is a way to practice. This is a way to learn. So you'll have your end of quiz, please. End of quiz for each lesson. End of lesson quizzes. Your Canvas quiz, please take them from lesson 2 to lesson 4. You have multiple time to take this lesson. You have multiple time to take these quizzes. You can keep repeating it to refresh your memory, to test your understanding, to be sure you understand this concept. If you have any questions on any of the quizzes, please let me know. So what are we going to check in lesson? No, I'm not saying this are the exact questions. I'm telling you the concept we'll be testing in lesson 2. What is an algorithm? When we started, we talked a lot about in our um, programming life cycle, what is an algorithm, what is computer programming. We talked about all these concepts, and we talked about the programming life cycle, what happened at each phase. At the problem solving, you have to analyze the problem. You have to verify the problem. You have to specify the requirements. And also you have to provide a one big solution. And before implementation, and at the implementation stage, that is when you do what? When you actually put in your code, you test your code, you debug it, you implement in your code. And at the maintenance phase, what did you do? What do you do at the maintenance phase? What do we do there? We check, is this program running? Is it solving the expected solution? Is it running the way it should? You may not have syntax error, but there may be some logical errors. There may be some logic errors within your code. So you need to test. Is it really working perfectly? Is it solving the problem implemented for? So these are the things that happens at the maintenance phase. Differentiate between classes and objects. Class, your documentation. It's the blueprint is the templates. That's the class. What is an object? An instance of a class. You cannot use a method within a class if you don't create an object for some specific methods. How do you print? You have to differentiate between the prints statements, Are you printing on a single line? Are you printing on the next line? These are things we want to check. The types of errors, the syntax error, the logic error. What are the difference? The syntax error, these are the mistakes we are making. They are more of the grammatical mistakes. the, the code, the mistakes within the code, and the compiler will not execute that code without fixing that error. Now, also the compiler will give you suggestion. Oh, there is an error in line 10, there is an error in line 15, things like that. But in logic error, the code will run as usual. Of course, it may not be solving the problem as specified. It is very, very important. What are import statements? Where do we place them? At the beginning, before your class. Imports, you're importing the scanner class. What class needs to be imported to read from the keyboard? The scanner class. The scanner class. Steps to compile and run Java program. Don't forget. Your class, your main method, understand the anatomy of a Java program. Your terminator, very, very important. Your statement, your stated terminator, please go to your lesson 2 and revise the anatomy of a Java program. Very important. And we talked about the basic programming language history from C++. In fact, we used the Tahoe. We talked about the Tahoe index as well. So please review lesson 2 quiz to test your knowledge, your understanding of this concept. And when we move to lesson 3, we were talking about how do we declare variable? How do we initialize variable? What is an identifier? What is a container? How do we store data in memory? What are the basic operators we have? We have arithmetic operator, we have the augmented, we have the increment, decrement. How does the increment, decrement operator works? Don't forget. Primitive data types and how to use them. The math class methods, the different methods we have in the math class. How do we use them? Don't forget, they are mostly static methods. They are not instants. We also talk about this important concept, implicit and explicit type conversion. Don't forget, we talk about the type narrowing and the type widening. Type narrowing, implicit, you're storing from a large to a smaller container. From example, from a double to an integer. Explicit, you're widening from a smaller container to a larger container, from integer to a double, for instance. Don't forget, implicit are mostly automatic. You don't need a specific command because the computer understands. Oh, I need to narrow, type narrowing, they're automatic. Explicit, we need a specific command. Please revise your lesson 3. Very, very important. Difference between implicit, type narrowing, explicit, type widening, type of conversion. How to read your API's documentation. We discussed that. This is from a specific library. It belongs to a specific library. It is from java.lang package. And within this package, we have different classes. Within this class, we have the character class. We have the string class, Understand this. Recommendations for debugging and troubleshooting. Extremely important. You must be able to trace your code. You must be able to predict, if I check this should be the outcome. Style guide recommendation, naming convention, camel case, upper camel case, lower camel case, how to declare your constants. Don't forget. And please revise your lesson 3 Canvas quiz as well to test your knowledge. And lastly, we talked about lesson 4, which we just concluded today. And we talked about the logical operators, the and, or, exclusive or, how do we use them? And each of the conditions All the conditions must be met before it executed a true value. In all, at least one must be true. However, in exclusive or, we said exactly one must be true. Don't forget about the relational operators as well. Greater than, equals to, greater than, less than, equals, not equals to. We also talk about short circuits. Short circuit, very important. Don't forget. This helps it helps what a short circuit does. It helps the compiler to save time. It helps the computer to quickly execute our logical statements. Because and it only works for the AND operator, the OR operator, or the NOT operator. Why? Because once one of these conditions is not met, for the AND operator, all the condition must be met, must be true. So if the compiler is checking the first condition and it's false, there is no point going through the other conditions because all the conditions must be met for AND operator. How to use our assignment operator. How to use the plus operator for concatenating. The purpose of break statement. Why do we have to break out? And we'll see more of that when we move to lesson 5 and we're talking about loops. We talk about the string class method today. We talk about the character class method. How to even write conditional statements, conditional expression. What is short circuit evaluation? And we had to review lesson 4. Canvas quiz to test our knowledge. The exam format will be true or false and multiple choice questions. I am wishing you success in your exam. And let me know if you have any questions before the exam. I'll be posting more. I'll be posting more information as regards to the exam on Monday. So that'll be the end of today's class and the end of lesson 4. And I am wishing you a very, very successful examination. Thank you very much. Any question? Thumbs up if there's no question. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
You too.
Mm.